avocados or something there. Now the other side looks just like that. It just drops the same way to the other side, and it's also cleared and terraced. Got it? And then you continue, and then you see the house with the red tile roof and the row of symmetrical trees. Okay, and then right over there is the top of that ridge. We'll call that the 800-foot ridge. Okay, and the top of it is probably 800 feet or something. We have a top of it to verify. And then we continue on over here, and now we start into the oak grove. This is all oak. We call this the big oak grove here. We got the oak grove, and then just over here where the oak grove ends, and there's just like from the air, all of this field looks pretty flat. You know, when you're up above everything, everything loses its vertical dimension. And when you look at this, it'll look just like flat ground. It doesn't look like a hill right now. It looks like flat ground. It looks like this. And then also a couple other things. You have a windsock here with a remnant of a century plant, watering trough, a cement culvert of some kind, 4 century plants. See the century plants there? And then we have the two-story house with the bougainvillea, and then just barely visible to the left of that is a single-story house. And then we're back to the church steeple again.
Is that what you look for first?
You look for everything. That's why I had you go around and identify these things for you to focus on. It's over there. There's another canyon, and then more flat area. Actually quite a bit of flat area. In fact, if you look at this, okay, here, you see this point, this road? That's right there. Okay, so here's the main field that we're going to be working with, and the oak grove, which is right there. And then there's, beyond that, there's quite a bit more flat area. It's right along San Marcos. It's right here. Now, La Cumbre Peak is just about straight over this house, up and slightly to the right.
Is that the one with the sort of building on top?
Yeah. There's a tower, and there's some trees, and Cathedral is to the right of that. It looks quite different than looking at it to see the spot that this shot was taken from. Completely different perspective. So where you're going to launch from is not visible from here. Okay, you can't see the launch point. And what you see from the launch point, which is right here, looks like this. So you have this big ridge. This whole ridge is that ridge up there. That's what we call West Bowl, exactly. We call the whole thing West Bowl. Bowl or ball? Bowl. Like a bowl. Somebody decided that there was a good bowl there and it was west of something, so ever since then we've called it West Bowl. Flying over left nut. Alright, so you can't see the takeoff from the landing or the landing from the takeoff. It sounds crazy, but it's real easy to get lost. It's very easy for you not to know where you are. And right now you're on the ground, you're relaxed, you had a good day of flying, you're cool, you're calm. You get up there, all of a sudden you've forgotten everything. Like maybe you can remember it from diving or something. You get under pressure, and all of a sudden all those things that you thought you really heard, now right in the middle of the flight you're thinking, now what did he say about that? How about this? So you really want to try and absorb all this. Besides this enough, your primary objective is to simply get from the takeoff to the landing area. Don't muck it up by trying to make it real fancy and try and get a lot of air time and try and cover a lot of ground. All you want to do is just go from the takeoff to the landing area and land safely, and that's it, and experience whatever happens to occur in between those things. You shouldn't take anything but a direct route from the takeoff to the landing area. In fact, you shouldn't do more than that for probably your first 6 flights or more from there to here. All you're trying to do is get more airtime and become familiar with the terrain and gain experience in how far you glide from a given altitude under a variety of conditions. Now 6 is hardly a great variety of conditions. In fact, we will avoid, by the way, see the helicopter up here? Something that you have to watch for. You see where he is? That's exactly where you'll be. Exactly. The same altitude, the same location, you will pass right through his door. So, it's a popular route right along the foothills. It's away from the city, so they're legal. And the only thing you can do is just keep your eyes open, and if you see or hear, you'll probably hear an aircraft before you see it. You just slowly roll 20 degrees, 20 degrees, 20 degrees, 20 degrees. You just try and make yourself visible. If you're too stable, you won't be seen. So all you want to do is fly A to B so you can get the airtime, familiarity with the terrain, and experience a variety of conditions so you can learn to judge glide angle. Now, invariably people assume that they can judge glide angle much sooner than they actually can. So based on a very small number of instances, you'll begin to draw conclusions about how far you can go. And the conditions that I'll have you fly in will be the optimum conditions. Very little headwind, buoyant air, so that if you conclude how much distance you can cover from a given altitude based on those 6 flights, you're going to be way off. So you only want to count on about 25 to 30% of your theoretical optimum performance. And that's about what you'll get in some circumstances if you have a lot of headwind and a lot of sink. You should take involves flying actually over this dirt slide area. You want to fly right towards that. And now these photographs show you what it looks like as you begin to round this point here. As you get around it, you start to see the landing area. See, from here you can't see the landing. Okay, that's the lake in Hope Ranch. You can use that as a point from which to relate where the landing area is. Now here again you see the lake, and now you can see the proximity of the landing area to the lake. So, you fly around the ridge. One of the common mistakes people make, there's a few common mistakes. First, when they take off, they get frantic trying to get into their harness. In the conditions that we'll fly in, you could just about fly the whole thing upright and it'd be okay. If you just relax, let the glider fly at the optimum speed, the speed that it trims at, you'll be fine. There's no trick to speed to fly unless you're in strong winds. The best speed to fly in light winds on a nice day is to just fly along at minimum safety. Just let the glider trim. So focus on your launch first. That means don't launch unless the conditions are right. And that means all that you've learned so far. The wind should come up the hill. It should be no more than 10, and if it's cycling, ideally wait until it's kind of blowing fairly good to launch. And focus on your launch. A lot of people make the mistake of focusing on, you can imagine you're about to make your first mountain flight. You're going to have a tendency to really anticipate what it's going to be like to be up high, and you're going to be a little nervous and trying to remember everything, and it's going to all be jumbled up in your brain. But you have to focus on your launch. You can't afford to drop your wing on the launch. If you blow a launch, you may or may not have you may just pick yourself up and relaunch, or you may end up with a broken leg or something. You've really got to focus on your launch. I can't emphasize that. It feels comfortable, and pay attention to which way you're going. One of the things that you haven't quite yet experienced is that when you're flying along on just normal conditions, there's little thermals popping off, and your glider will fly all over the place. That may really unnerve you, and you may be really concerned that you can't make your glider go exactly where you want it to. So you want to leave yourself with a good, safe distance from the terrain. Let's just say 100 to 150 feet. That's about the maximum distance you've been away from the terrain so far. So when I tell you to stay at least 100 to 150 feet away from the terrain, what usually happens is the students fly way, way, way out into the middle of that canyon, trying to get around here, instead of flying in near the terrain, they go way, way left. They end up flying way over here. Well, not only does that mean that you then have a greater distance route, but it also means that you fly out into the middle of the canyon where the greatest amount of sink is, where the least amount of lift is. So you want to stay right near this terrain. You want to be within 100 to 150 feet of it. If it's real turbulent, you may want to increase it to 200 feet. But generally you want to fly around the terrain, and as soon as you get around to the front, bear to the right, fall back to the right, so that you can fly right along the face of West Bowl. In fact, you can just about, so you head right towards this dirt slide, and then you only fall away to the left just enough to maintain that minimum distance from the terrain. Right? One thing you want to watch out for is if you head for a notch like this, you head right towards the center of it, figuring that you're going to maintain your distance. If you start to sink, falling to the left has you moving towards rising terrain, which means you're going to have to turn sharply to the left to get around that little hump. You know what I mean? Like if you're flying at something and you want to get around to the side of it, you only have to just move over a little bit to the left, and as you're descending, the ground is also falling away, right? So you can just move on around. But if you have a situation where you're going to try and, well, like this, for example, where it goes down and then it goes back up again, if you aim for that notch, in other words, what you have to do is imagine that this line runs straight, like that. Just make it a straight line and continue falling away to the left so as to maintain enough clearance. Because you may sink more than you expect, or you may not sink as much. Around the ridge is to fall off to the left, given that you've made a clear decision that you're going to go to the east side rather than the west side. I mean, you don't like start off saying, well, I'm going to go to the east side, and then after you get way around here say, no, I'm going to go to the west side and go back around. That's clearly out of the question. So as soon as you get around the ridge, you have to visually locate this field. You spend your whole flight looking around, locating everything, getting a sense of where the landing is in relationship to the coast, in relationship to the main highways, San Marcos Pass and 101, where La Cumbre Plaza is. That's a big shopping center. It's easy to identify. In fact, La Cumbre Plaza is, well, here's this. This is over by the this bowling alley and the medical center right over here. And I can look back right now and see the top of Robinson's and La Cumbre Plaza. See that over there? You start seeing all these places. You can see the shopping center, and then you get to see where the hills are in the back, and you really get secure in knowing where you are. I want to emphasize that you will be very instinct to get out. You see there's several little ridge lines that you could follow. There's about 4 different ones. And ideally you want to try and follow you see up on the face of West Bowl, you see the zigzag path right in the middle?
Yeah.
Just almost, and it disappears behind the 800-foot ridge. You see that?
No.
Okay, you see the top of the 800-foot ridge right here in front of us? And you see the big tree.
Right.
Directly to the left, 100 yards, and you see that there's a zigzag path on the face of West Bowl. Ideally, you want to fly across the face of West Bowl, and then turn so as to fly right over that zigzag path, and then head right for here.
Where approximately will you be coming around on West Bowl?
From this point of view, almost exactly where the main ridge disappears behind West Bowl. And you can see a few antennas just before it disappears.
Oh, so where that little notch is then? Or a little higher, a little above that notch?
Yeah.
So you'll come around there, and how far do you want to stay away from the front of West Bowl?
150 to 200 feet maximum.
Okay.
And if it's real smooth, you could get into within 100 feet. Along the face, because you can, because the glider's performance will enable you to do that, and because it's a way maybe to get a little bit of lift without deviating substantially off from your primary goal of going from A to B, going from takeoff to landing. That really is the main thing. You don't want to try and make it any more complex. So even that extra little jog along the face of West Bowl isn't very important. What's most important is that once you get around and you can visually locate your landing area, with the possible exception of that one little pass along the face of the west bowl, you come straight to the landing area.
Okay.
No matter how high you are. I have to emphasize that too, because after I've said it 10 times, then somebody will they'll start spinning 360s up there, and I'll say, what'd you do that for? And they say, well, I thought I was too high to go to the landing area. You understand that I mean a straight line? I mean, come right here. I don't care if you're 4 million feet up, come straight here, and then we'll deal with the altitude once you're here. Don't try and go up and down the range or fly around West Bowl or anything. You want to just get from there to here. And once you're here, we'll deal with the altitude once you're here. So, at the very least, you shouldn't really make any turns unless I specifically tell you to, with the possible exception of that singular pass across the face of West Bowl and then come straight out. You don't want to make any turns until you are directly on this side of the 800-foot ridge. Once you're on this side of the 800-foot ridge, any place you land around here, we can get to you really easy. And you can probably land okay without any serious problem.
Do you normally experience some loss of altitude as you come around the first turn there, as you turn right coming around West Bowl? As you cross that valley, do you lose some altitude right there normally?
Well, you're losing altitude pretty much the whole time, and I assume then you mean you lose a greater amount of altitude.
Yes. Is that a substantial loss right there as you go across that gully?
No, you mean between the 800-foot ridge and West Bowl?
No, between these two legs coming down off the West Bowl.
Not necessarily, and anything's possible. I mean, it's very difficult to say that it's always this way or it's always that way or it's even mostly a particular way, because it really varies a lot. And your question is real indicative of your experience level, and I don't mean to, I'm not slighting you, I'm just saying that that's what, at this stage, the less experience you have, the more you try and like categorize everything and pigeonhole everything. And what I found is that in almost every instance where I try and say it's going to be this way, there's too many exceptions to really get comfortable with that particular notion. So sometimes you get a ton of lift going across there, and then other times you'll have a hard time making it from there to here. So you might lose a lot of altitude, and you probably won't. I mean, I'm reluctant to tell you anything that would give you anything to lean on. I mean, it's really important that you go directly from there to here. So let's leave all of that for the moment, and let's just talk about the landing approach.
Where's this? Is this up on?
Oh, that house right there is must be right in here. It's not, can't find it. It should be right. There's a big reservoir, and then there's let's see, the big reservoir would be spot over here, and then there's a green water tank, and then there's another reservoir. Reservoir is an open pond. And then a green water tank. The big water tank is right up on the high point of that ridge. The smaller green tank is just to the left of that house. And then the smaller reservoir is also just to the left of that house. And it all looks completely different from up there. You want to have two turn points, roughly here and here. There's one turn point, and there's another big turn point. I was going to use that ant, but of course that wouldn't work very well. See if I can get that ant to
do the racetrack.
Okay, well, let's see where he goes. Pretty good, look at that. You're blowing. Okay, there's one turn point, and there's another turn point. Now here's how you do it. You come in, and you start to go around these turn points. And then you set up a figure-8 pattern. Now I am specifically, each time I get to the end of the course, and I'm going to turn to come back to the other end, I always turn towards the field. Towards the field. Towards the field. Now if I went the other way, each time I reversed, I'd be turning away from the field. Away from the field. At this point, you're running directly downwind. There's a significant difference your turns always into the wind or towards your target versus away from your target. In this figure 8 course, I never turn my back directly on the field. Watch. I'm never turning my back directly on the field. Here is the worst, and I'm still not coming straight away this way. I'm coming at an angle. Okay? Never turning my back on the field. It's real important. The problem with turning your back on the field, now that would mean a 360, right? Or I should say a 360 absolutely involves some part of the 360 going directly away from the field, right? Whereas figure 8s don't necessarily. They could, but they don't necessarily. So when you fly with the wind, how many minutes of airtime do you have flying close to the terrain, directly downwind? You got about 2 seconds today. Yeah, almost none. So you can't say, well, I know how fast my ground speed would be. You can guess how much your ground speed would be. The point is that you don't have any experience going downwind near the terrain. You do have definite experience, lots of experience flying into the wind near the terrain, don't you? Almost all of your flying at the Mesa is into the wind near the terrain. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So you have an experience there. You really have to distinguish between experience and speculation. Experience is actually doing something, and speculation is just thinking about it. Now, you may think you think pretty good, but there's a big difference between how good you can think and how good you can recall actual experiences. It's like the difference between the first time you had sex and the first time somebody told you what sex is like. Like they didn't jive. It's completely different. Unless you had somebody that could really explain it well, and I'll bet it still didn't feel as good when they explained it. So, in addition to not being able to judge, the problem with not being able to judge ground speed is one problem, and the other problem is that the more, given that you want to end up flying into the wind, the more away from the wind line you are, the greater the number of degrees of heading change you need to go through to get back to being straight into the wind. If you're never more than 120 degrees off the wind line, which in this figure 8 pattern, basically you never are. Okay, so we come around like this, and let's just say the wind is coming just like this. So you come around right here, as you go across like this, you're about 120 degrees off the wind line. You're heading in that direction and the wind's there. That's about 120 degrees, right? There's 90, there's about 120 degrees. So that 70 degrees difference, or that 60 degrees difference, takes up time. It consumes time to change heading. So you're in better shape, never being more than 120 degrees off your ultimate heading, which relates to the wind direction, than if you're doing a 360, which guarantees that at some moment you're going to be a full 180 degrees away from your final intended heading. So you want to do figure 8s and never do 360s when you're below 500 feet. Now, as you get better and better and you become a real skilled pilot and you got your advanced rating, all that, you do anything you want. But I'm recommending that you don't do any downwind runs, which a 360 would include, when you're near the terrain. Once you're down in your approach, in your pattern altitude would be the altitude that would permit you enough time and altitude to be able to do a distinct downwind leg of about 150 to 200 feet, crosswind leg of 150 to 200 feet, and an upwind leg of 150 to 200 feet. Damn near the whole thing that you do at the Mesa or more. Actually, even the Mesa it doesn't really give you full pattern altitude. So roughly 300 feet is what we're talking about. So when you're within 300 feet of the terrain, or specifically within 300 feet of your target, you should be focusing exclusively on your landing. No more playing around, no more speed experiments or rolling experiments or looking around or talking on the radio or anything. And when you're within about 150 feet, you should stand up. A lot of people, even though you're much more accustomed to standing than you are laying prone, the first flight you make, you'll suddenly be more experienced or feel more experienced in prone than in upright. And one of the common mistakes people make is they forget to stand up, and they end up either landing on their stomach or flipping up right in their last turn and screwing up their last turn. So, do the figure 8.
Can I ask you the only
Yeah.
thing? This is this ridge coming right down here.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you've got one turn point about right here and one further down.
Yeah, one just about across from that big tree,
Uh-huh.
and another one just up here about 300 feet. The turn points should be roughly 300 feet apart.
Okay, and you can adjust. But so you're coming in here, you turn in here, then you go in that direction and curve around. That's the way you do your 8, right?
Yeah.
Okay. That's this one.
Let's just absorb this. So you do your figure 8, and then at some point you're down low and you say, okay, it's time to turn towards my target. So no matter where you are, you should know exactly which way you're going to turn to head towards your target. You can't say that the only place I'll depart my pattern is here and here, because it might occur to you at any moment. Any place in this pattern might be the time to turn towards your target. So at any moment you should know exactly, if this becomes the moment, I'll turn left. Or if you go in other words, when you're coming back this way, and you're heading, let's see, coming across like this, say, oh, I want to turn towards my target, you go to the right. And after you come here, right around here, start to come down, you go, oh, I'm too low, I better turn towards my target, you turn left. So you have to know which way you're going to turn. It's hard for me to tell you exactly which way you'll be facing when it comes time to turn into the target. And then you intend to land right there. Right there. The far end of that little spot. That's where we are right now. We're sitting on that spot. Now, I don't expect your judgment to be anything more than crude, because you've never descended from 3,600 feet before. So really know that it's okay to overshoot. No big deal. Just you have to know exactly where to go if you overshoot. So you're going to go along. You're going to go over your target. You're going to go to the left of the cattle troughs. You're going to go right down the top of the plateau. Before you hit that pepper tree, then you're going to cross over here, and you're going to come back, and you're going to go down this plateau, and you're going to be back right here, ready to do the whole loop again. So there is the figure 8 pattern, and then there's the big loop. Okay? You see that there's two things that we're talking about here? Figure 8 pattern and the big loop? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, I know from experience that what happens is people don't quite get the figure 8 thing. They end up overshooting. And that's okay. You've got to know where to go. Now, here's what usually happens. I say, okay, follow the big loop. And then what happens? Here comes somebody and they land in between the cattle troughs and the pepper tree. That's not the big loop, is it? How do you end up someplace there if you're really steering where you want to go? The only place you should end up is somewhere below on this big loop. Somewhere in here is the only place you should end up. Now, do you think you can do that? Okay. Now, I really want you to understand that then if you come up this plateau, that you don't turn and head towards the motorhomes, which are right there. If you do, you run the risk of overshooting and plowing into the church and the wires and the fences and everything. And also, if you're following the big loop, you can't point that way, can you? Because the big loop is right around here. I mean, be specific in understanding where I'm talking about. It's right along the top of this plateau. It's just short of this pepper tree. You hang a left. Don't hang a right. Hang a left and come right over here to this plateau. Back over in here and come along this big plateau here. And then you're right back in position to aim for this target again. Now, see, I have to look at the worst case scenario and say, well, let's see. One day, one of my students will turn to final. He'll roll out of his figure 8 pattern at 3,000 feet. Seems a little improbable. On the other hand, recently when John Wallach made a flight, on one of his flights the radio didn't work, and I know what it was. The radio worked, but he ended up switching channels accidentally. His hand brushed the radio in an exercise, and so he shut his radio off. So then he turns to final when he's at like 1,500 feet. And he's just like going, he's 1,500 feet up and he's going this way. I'm going, oh no. So he didn't follow the big loop. Actually, he managed to get it down, and he actually ended up landing on this plateau. But he didn't follow the loop. You've got to get that clear in your mind, and I hate to make it, I don't mean to say that I think you guys are stupid, but I'm really trying to emphasize it in a way that I can be absolutely certain that you're clear. And if you don't want to do this, that's fine. You can say, no, I think that's dumb and I want to do it a different way, and then we'll address that factor. But if you're willing to follow my recommendations, then be clear what my recommendations are. And if you don't want to follow them, say, no, I don't want to do that, I want to do it differently. So it's not like, being in dispute and keeping it inside. You got to say, no, I think that's dumb, or I'm not going to do that. Or be in agreement and be absolutely certain that you know what I'm describing here. 1,000 feet, and you're going, that is ridiculous. Turn the final at 3,000 feet. Well, I'd recognize 3,000 feet. Well, I'll bet you would. If we were just betting money, somebody says, well, I'll bet you $500 that Kyle turn on approach at 3,000 feet. I'd say, no, I'll bet against that. I'll even give you like 5-to-1 odds, and I'll bet you he's within 500 feet of the proper altitude. But there's a big difference between betting money and betting your life, right? So we're not talking about betting money here. We're talking about being able to absolutely ensure your survival and your well-being on this whole process. Pull in and really dive off the last little bit of your altitude. And then on this, if you find yourself landing on this uphill slope, you're going to have to give it a nice sharp flare.
When would you start diving? When you're right over here, coming down this little slope right there?
Yeah, to some extent, that's where you can use your judgment and your experience. You can say, well, because once you're down to within 75 or 100 feet, it's going to start seeming real familiar.
Yeah.
Although maybe not. Sometimes you may find that even though you've spent a lot of time at between altitudes up to 75 feet, it may look completely different, because this is a different place than where you've learned your judgment. You've learned it at the Mesa. And you're going to be a different person. You're going to be thinking differently. You'll feel differently. You will have just finished 15 minutes of flying, and your whole point of view is going to be altered. So it may not be as familiar as it sounds like it might be as we talk about it right now. So, A to B, figure 8 pattern, the big loop. Other common mistakes people make are they tend to get real slow in their pattern. You should keep your speed up. So as soon as you get into your pattern altitude, as soon as you're within 300 feet of the terrain, you should be flying at about maximum glide speed. That's with the bar pulled in, say 4 or 5 inches from what you normally fly. And when you're in the last 20 to 30 seconds of flight, you should be flying maybe even a little faster than that. You should flip up early. Maybe when you can flip up for the whole pattern if you want. At 300 feet, you can flip up. Nothing wrong with that at all. It'll help you. It'll help you get stopped. How about the sky I've got now?
We should start this 8 pattern when we're 300 feet up.
Yeah. Oh, now we're going to have radios on the glider. And I will talk you through a whole bunch of exercises depending on how much altitude you have. But we have to assume that the radios aren't going to work. So you have to absorb all of this, and you also have to, not only radios might not work, I might drop dead. I might just drop dead. Like all this pressure and trauma of all these years of teaching, I might just have a cardiac arrest and drop dead, and you're going to have to do this on your own. So you really need to be thinking of this as if you were going to do it on your own, and also take advantage of all of the things that can assist you, which is all of this discussion and all of the radio guidance should it work. And we've had enough instances where the radios have had problems where you might not get the radio. So if the radios don't work and I'm still alive, what we'll do is you just go, you have to look for me. I'll be down here, and you just go whichever way I point. Now you have to keep watching me, because if I go like that and you start going that way and you don't ever look at me again, you'll just go that way forever, right? So you have to keep looking at me to see when I'm gesturing the other way. And if I'm jumping up and down and yelling and screaming, and I'm trying to get another message to you besides direction, you can be sure that you need to go faster.
Okay.
And or you need to stand up. Okay, those are the main things that you'll hear me say. Stand up or go faster. Nobody ever goes fast enough. So let's see, what else can we talk about? Emergency procedures. If anybody should crash, and this is good information for as long as you're flying, if anybody crashes any place besides the road itself, even if they're only as far away as those cows into the brush, you're going to need, in addition to calling 911 and requesting assistance, you're going to have to specify that they need to call search and rescue, or that search and rescue will be required. And if it's a crash in the mountains, especially if you can't immediately get right to the person and ascertain what their condition is, you need to tell them that a helicopter will be required to transport the victim to the hospital. All right? So you just have to know that. That's just something that you'll probably never have to use, but you need to know what to do and what to say. And the closest phone can be reached by going that way on San Marcos Pass. There's a phone in the church. Okay, you can run right in there, right there next to the main, where they hold some identifying area. And then what you, oh, by the way, if somebody crashes, before you go running off asking for help, you have to get a solid visual fix on it. This is miles and miles of terrain here, and you can literally come back and you won't be able to find where that person is. Then you're really bummed, wishing that you had really paid attention and looked, it's gotten some visual reference. Pile something up on the side of the road where you were standing. We went through this once before, where we were looking for somebody, and the guy that had seen where this person had been couldn't find where he had been standing when he had seen this person go down. So then he's going, well, I think I was right here, but I don't see it. And then we're going, God, why didn't you pay attention? So see where you're standing, take something, pile some rocks up, draw something in the road, and then memorize some visual reference point so that when you come back, you can walk right up to that point and say, the last I saw him, he was in line with that big boulder right there. Maybe that the glider flew down into a ravine or something.
I'll call you back.
Okay, that's fine with me, and I'll wait it out a little while longer.
What are conditions like in the LZ? Over.
Well, I'm not exactly in the LZ, but I'm very close, and I'd say the wind is no more than 6 to 8, and probably not even that much most of the time. And so far, it doesn't appear as though anybody is doing any extraordinary maneuvering to be able to land. It looks fairly good.
Launch, this is Comet 3, about 500 over in the LZ. It's a little turbulent for 1,000 to 1,300, so as you get lower, it laminates out. It's looking pretty good. Can you give me a wind direction? Over. Due south, due south. Thanks a lot.
I'll watch for you. you can hear me, do a sharp right 360 and roll out heading in the same direction you're heading now. That's it, nice and sharp. And roll out on the landing field heading. Perfect. Boy, that was well done. Nice crisp rollout. And keep coming this way. You can probably see me walking in the landing area right now, Todd. Real hard. All right, good. Very good. Let out a big word. Incredible. I used to own. Clay might be in the air. I think he is. And that'll help you get prone. Clay, you look just great. You're doing just fine. You're actually a little past the zigzag switchback trail, but that's okay. You are still in good shape. But at some point you need to turn and come towards the landing area. Yeah, that's much better. Much better. Keep pushing out. Even when you want to turn, keep pushing out. You need to find out how bad your turning gets when you're pushed out too far. Now, without pulling back in, roll the other way. Keep the bar out. If you're able to roll, you're not pushing out far enough. Keep pushing out until you can't get it out of the turn. Yeah, okay, that's good. Now return to trim. Now I want you to do 4 360s in a row. Just pick a direction and start turning. That's it, even steeper. Listen to the airspeed and try and keep it constant. Okay, easy on the pitch now. Start over again. Start over again and smoothly roll into a 360. Clay, turn and go back towards the mountain. I want you to go right back straight towards the mountain, straight towards takeoff right now. Go straight towards takeoff. Level off and go towards takeoff. In fact, while you're doing that, go ahead and pull in a little bit and see how rapidly you can slalom. You got to slalom now. Go ahead and slalom. That's good. Now reverse. Keep your speed up. Reverse. You actually have to make it bank, Clay. Now reverse. Go left. Sharp left. Sharp left. You gotta actually move the bar when I tell you, Clay. That's it. Now sharp right, sharp right, sharp right. Good. Now sharp left, and make sure you move your feet too. Good. Now sharp right, sharp right, sharp right, sharp right, sharp right. You can pull in if you need to. Good. Now sharp left, real sharp left, real sharp left. Come on, you can do it fast. I don't know, over the turn point. You're approximately over the plateau now. That's a pretty good place. You can turn left now. Actually, your pylon is a little too far in towards the oak grove. Come back this way a little bit. Slide down that plateau. I want you to keep your eyes glued to the target. Look at the target. Look at where I'm standing. Now right. Sometimes it takes a long time for you to get your glider to turn, Clay. Make sure you muscle it a little bit. Glue your eyes to the target. You're about 250 feet. Can you see the target now? Now turn left. Keep it in. Keep your speed up now. I don't want you to get going slow. Stand up. Get out of the stirrup. Get out of the harness. Stand up out of it. Keep steering. Steer it. Right, 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 right. Keep it in and right. Keep it in and right. Turn right. Turn right. Okay, fly straight to me. Pull in. Let's see what a dive is like. Pull the bar in as far as you can pull it. Just see how far in you can pull the bar in until it's hitting your body. Until the base tube is hitting your thigh. Pull in. Pull in. Come on, you don't have it all the way in. Pull that devil in. Pull it in. Come on, you're stronger than that. Pull in. Pull in, Clay. Pull in as hard as you can. Pull in as hard as you can. Pull in as hard as you can. Now go left a little. Yeah, that's fine, right there. Okay, you got a good line on your landing. A little bit to the right. Good. Get it level. Get it level. Out a little. Flare. Good one, Clay. Yay! Woo! There was more pull-in available.
Yeah.
And even still, you did okay. I mean, you followed my instructions very well.
You know, there's 4 360s that it's going to take some getting used to because it seems like you're always going to go on over or something.
Yeah.
There's that feeling.
They're great for figuring out how to coordinate a turn. They're the best thing, in my opinion, to learn how to coordinate a turn.
Yeah.
And because of that very thing, I mean, the uncoordinated turns become extremely obvious when it's not working right.
Yeah.
And if you do enough 360s, you'll just automatically learn how to coordinate a turn. I love it when the equipment gets back.
We'll take care of your equipment.
Okay, good.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Yeah, good for you. Real happy to see you fly. It's an absolute delight for me, and I know what it is for you. All right. I think I can guess. Good one.
Well, skydiving was a lot easier, but already this is much more rewarding than that bullshit.
Well, I'll bet you've already got more airtime doing this than you do free falling.
I'll probably have more than 15 minutes free fall time, I expect.
Yeah, but I'll bet you got an hour of airtime at the Mesa.
True. You're absolutely right.
And
Well, thanks a lot,
Yeah,
kid.
that should put you over your record of free falling time. True. It's probably true. And you're just beginning. Actually, you've done all the hard work now. You got all the hard work behind you. You paid all the money. There's not much more money to pay. I'll be sure and let you know if I can think of anything. Now, how do we get out there? Just walk right over towards the motorhome. Yeah, just drop it off at the house or by the Mesa if you like.
Several of the fellows behind you, not
I'm
Rick.
going back to work tomorrow. I've been down there ever since I bought the
I ain't
car.
going tax too high.
Hey, well, you sure look good, man, in Catalina.
You look great, man.
Doing fine.
All right.
You did great.
My fourth
Picked up
flight.
attitude real quick.
You look real sharp.
Yeah, that was great.
That was really hot. You look sharp. Both of you guys look great.
God, it felt so good.
I'm just delighted and I'm proud of you. And you
Thanks
guys
a lot
did-
for hanging around this long.
Sure. Well, I'm thinking, well, now I got to go back and I got to deal with Louie and whoever else back there going, hey, where were you? I go, well, someday. But it doesn't happen that often, and each time you fly, it'll get a little easier. So, can you see to it? Can you come back out to the training hill and make sure all this equipment gets back out to me? Because I got to go right now. I'd like to talk to you about a whole lot of things that I got to Russ.
Great, we'll talk to you later.
All right.
Thanks a lot, Ken.
Yeah, you're welcome.